Show. Now, Nova Scotia's new health minister is calling on the federal government to do more about the problem of prescription drug abuse. Leo Glavine submitted his thoughts to the House of Commons Standing Committee on Health earlier this week. He's calling on the federal government to introduce a national plan for monitoring and surveillance of drug-related deaths. And he's also calling for a tightening on accessibility and marketing of prescription drugs, noting that deaths related to prescription drugs increased after pharmaceutical companies were given the right to directly market their drugs to physicians. So no one in this province has spent more time looking into the issue of prescription drug abuse than our guest this morning. Amy Graves lost her brother Josh after an overdose of prescription drugs, and we welcome her in studio this morning. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
There's lots to talk about today. Let's start with the minister tying prescription drug deaths to this introduction of direct marketing to physicians. Let's talk about that.
Well, in the early to mid-90s, when OxyContin was coming to the market, there was a huge marketing campaign to destigmatize the use of opioids for pain. So instead of them being for chronic pain, cancer pain or severe pain, they were marketed towards chronic pain, sore backs, dental work, stuff like this, post-op. And that kind of aggressive marketing and one-on-one with the doctors, you can see a direct relation to addiction and overdose when that marketing campaign started. And in the U.S., later down the road, we came to find out that Purdue Pharma, the maker of OxyContin and Dilaudid and some of these other painkillers, was actually held accountable in court and criminally charged for falsifying facts and being misleading in their advertising to doctors about the addictiveness of their product.
So as a result of Leo Glavine announcing that he believes that there is that relationship, what changes are going to take place in Nova Scotia?
Well, I'm hoping for a separation between industry and programs that can make a difference, such as the prescription monitoring program. People who do prescribing guidelines, that's on a federal level. If you look at our Canadian prescribing guidelines for chronic non-cancer pain, for opioids, almost half of the doctors have financial disclosures from the maker of these narcotics. Okay. So I think separating industry from protecting the public and making guidelines and safeguards is something that would make a big impact. You wouldn't want someone from a tobacco company heading a study on the effects of cancer and tobacco use.
Right.
So I see that as a similar issue.
In general, there have been a number of changes announced very recently. How do you feel about the direction that the Nova Scotia government is taking in addressing prescription drug abuse?
Oh, it's positive. I mean, before in previous government, to try to get them to acknowledge the problem and just say that this was happening was very difficult. I find Leo's candidness about this and honesty very refreshing, and just his dialogue with the public. I know these changes can't be implemented overnight. There needs to be infrastructure. There needs to be stuff done in a methodical way. But him engaging the public and speaking so openly about this, I think, is a great start to create the public awareness as well and have that conversation where you live in a culture where there's a pill or a fix for everything. And that's something that needs to change too. We go into a doctor's office and expect to get something that's going to make us feel better when we leave, and sometimes it's always not that easy. So creating that dialogue and having the Minister of Health be the one creating that dialogue, I think is pretty awesome.
People at home may not realize how big an issue prescription drug abuse is. Talk about how prevalent that is in Nova Scotia.
Well, we're losing about, if you divide the statistics over 5 years, it equals out to 7 Nova Scotians a month dying from a prescription drug overdose.
My goodness.
It's just been under 500 people in 5 years. So, and as Leo said in his testimony to the Standing Committee on Health, opiate dependency treatment, people seeking out help for being addicted to these narcotics, has risen over 100% since '06.
Really?
Over 100% increase since 2006 in our province. So I think we really need to look at why is there such a dramatic increase and how we can prevent people from getting to the point where they need to reach out for these services. You constantly hear about governments expanding methadone programs, harm reduction, which is needed because we already have an addicted population, but how can we prevent that from occurring? Or are we going to constantly try to keep up with the number of people becoming dependent on these drugs?
So you said you're pleased to see that a lot of changes are in the works. What more would you like to see done?
In terms of, I really think that the industry needs to be separated from prescription monitoring, prescribing guidelines, doctors who come in to educate student doctors. They should not have any special interests, should not be affiliated with these pharmaceutical companies. I think if we can get doctors on the same page in using factual evidence-based material in their prescribing, not handouts from pharmaceutical companies, that will make a huge impact and hopefully trickle down to patients and public and so on and so forth. But they really hold the key. All these drugs have to come from a doctor's prescription pad, so they're not grown in basements or manufactured or in an illicit way.
Mm-hmm.
They are legitimately coming from medical sources.
How long are you going to keep doing this work?
As long as it takes. I mean, I can't really... It's something that's always going to be important to me because of the loss of my brother. But until things change and as long as I see deficiencies, I'd like to help, not combat government as it's been before, because now government has kind of accepted it, but work with them and see how we can do this the most efficiently and make the most impact.
Thank you so much for coming in this morning.
Thanks for having me.